ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here with a rant, discussion, really just vomiting a stream of consciousness from my mind to my mouth. I'm going to talk about something that, it's just a tiny little, not a big deal, not a big discussion in the gaming community, nothing like that. I just want to talk about digital versus physical. That old chestnut. Yeah, so digital versus physical has become, it's been a debate that's been going on since the beginning of digital gaming. It's picked up a lot of steam because digital has kind of become the primary mode for a lot of other media. You've got music, movies are quickly becoming very digital, digital only. I mean, there are still DVD, Blu-ray releases of things, but like, there's a huge push for digital, and a lot of people are like, well, games should be as well. And I've been very torn on that, and the more I look into it, the more I am torn on this. I am probably the most not accurate poster child for either. Like, just really. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So first and foremost, I am kind of a game collector. I love collecting games, games from my childhood that I love, that had an impact on me. Modern games that are coming out that I feel would have had the same impact had I played them when I was younger, or could still have a major impact on me. Games can still have a very, very powerful impact on people. So I like to collect those. I like to have them. I like to have a physical copy of them, basically to do with as I please. Because there are way too many times that if you have to trust a digital copy, either the service could go away. A lot of times games as a service, a lot of games are locked behind a membership. The NES games on the Switch, the PlayStation Network, free titles, Xbox titles do the same thing. The Xbox Now, I believe is what it's called. That if you don't have the current service, you lose access to those games. So the games technically really aren't free because they are locked behind a paywall of some sort. And then there are instances where games get delisted from digital services. Donkey Kong Country is a very notable example because it was on the Nintendo Wii eShop, and then it wasn't. And it's available if you had purchased it, you should still be able to download it. But then there are instances where that's not the case. There are many games that are just digital only, and as such, they are kind of lost to history. Games like Scott Pilgrim, that is digital only. The license for it expired. It's not available anywhere. The only way you can get a copy of it is you can check eBay and find a PS3 that has it installed, and that's about it. So, I think paying $400 for a copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga is kind of insane. That is equally insane. So, like, there are pros and cons to both, and really anyone who tells you otherwise, anyone who is just screaming the praises of one while trying to admonish the other, that's a level of bias that is just, it's never going to be overcome. So nothing I say, nothing anyone says is ever going to really change that person's opinion. They're either going to scream digital or physical until the day they die. But there are pros and cons to both, and really it's something that I've started getting into, especially the more and more I mod consoles. I have a very large Saturn library behind me. A lot of really hard to find games. Games that are just increasing in age, decreasing in number, because every year just less and less exist. Either it gets scratched up and it's not playable, or maybe it's lost in a move, flood, fire, earthquake, tornado, locust swarm, whatever. Copies just end up disappearing over time. So, I'm very protective of the copies that I have. Very concerned about the longevity of the copies that I have, because as a collector you hear about things like disc rot, and just the fact that, all of this is, going to break down over time. Hopefully the goal is to make sure it breaks down long after you're dead. Just to be completely honest about it, that's the goal. But I've even gone a step farther in my concern, because the consoles that I have, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, those are consoles, very early consoles that used CD drives, optical drives. They are the biggest point of failure in a console. Those are the things that are going to die first, because there's just so many moving parts, so many tiny moving parts, that one of those goes, the rest of it just crumbles. So for those, I opted to get optical drive emulators. Circuit boards that replace the entire optical drive array with an SD reader. And with the perk of that, you can put so many games on an SD card. I have my entire Saturn library on an SD card in my Saturn. I don't have to pull a single one of those games off the shelf to play it. That is an amazing feature, because I'm still playing the game on the actual hardware. I don't have to worry about emulation bugs and hiccups and glitches, making sure my system can handle it, or tinkering with the settings to make sure I'm getting the best possible ability to play. I can just play it on the hardware that it's supposed to be played on. Same with the Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast kicks that up even further, because Dreamcast uses a GD-ROM, a specific proprietary, no longer in production type of CD drive. So when those go, it's not like you can just pop in a new CD drive. The Saturn and the PlayStation, I believe you can just get a CD-ROM laser, and that'll work fine. And so there's billions of those around. Even if they've stopped it in production, there's so many of them were made that you can just pop one in and it'll work. The GD-ROM, however, not the case. Those start going, no one else makes them. So what are you going to do? So I did the same thing. I have a GD-ROM optical drive. It's like has the same features. I can put my entire Dreamcast library on it, play it all at once. So there is an advantage to the digital aspect of it, because I've got my entire gaming library on one format. I don't have to worry about switching discs, damaging discs, things like that. Blu-rays is a little harder to damage a Blu-ray. Believe me, I've tried. So, like, that's one thing. Like, I really feel that digital is a good way to preserve games. And I feel that digital is a good way to have access to a library immediately. I often find myself playing on the Switch. I have physical copies of games. Smash Brothers, for example. Especially in my case when I'm recording. If I'm recording multiple games from the same console, especially, say, the Switch, I have to switch it out, take the cartridge, because, say for now, right now, I'm recording Smash Brothers and Battle Chasers, both of which are physical. Anytime I want to switch and deal with the other game to get a group of a window of games for that, for recording, I have to switch it out, make sure I'm in a place where it's like, okay, I can remove the cartridge without losing any data, etc. Because, you have to make sure you save the game, exit the game, close the software, just so you don't risk losing anything, because they always warn you, don't do that. But, like, that's not a lot of work. It's not a lot of effort. It's not a lot of hassle. But it feels like a lot of hassle. So often I've been seriously tempted to double dip on games like this. Have a digital version of it on the console so I can just play it. But I'm also very, very cautious about digital only, because you don't own it. It can disappear at a moment's notice. The only way for it to disappear is if someone breaks into my house and takes it. Or I lose it. One, I can blame myself on, and I have no one to blame but myself if I lose my copy. And there are safeguards in place, things like insurance, and, pesky thing of, like, stealing is illegal. If someone were to steal a copy of the game. So, I feel that, there are advantages to both. There are pros and cons to both. And there are things that I feel really do benefit both. I love having my entire Dreamcast and Saturn collection in one place. I have an EverDrive on the N64 that does the exact same thing. I have a modded original Xbox that allows me to put things on it so that I have access to all of these games in one place. I've modded my Wii for the exact same reason. I'm really looking into modding a PS2 for the same reason. Mostly, a lot of these consoles, save for the N64, the biggest reason why I do it is because the drives fail. And that makes playing the games impossible. I have already gone through a couple of Wii consoles because the disc loader just crapped the hell out. So having a modded Wii that has the ability to have my game library on the Wii, or at the very least, if I can't fit the entire library on it for whatever reason, I can, however, just take an ISO of the game that I've got, like just take the disc, pop it in a drive, rip the ISO, put it on my Wii. I own the game. I have a copy of it right behind me. And that gets into a lot of the fun legality of it. A lot of people look at digital copies as far easier to pirate, which is true. That's a thing. I mean, there's an entire case going on about Soulja Boy and Nintendo right now getting into it, which is something that I've kind of wanted to talk about, but that's just there are no winners in that race. None whatsoever. So, a lot of people see digital as a convenient means of piracy. It's like once you buy the game, it is yours to do with what you wish. And in fact, there are statutes, at least in the US, that say that to that degree. If you have a copy of a game, you are within your legal right to take that game and make a backup of it, as long as you don't distribute it. You are within your right to make backups of any physical thing you own. That is a wonderful thing that we have. You also have things like first sale doctrine. You can, once you buy something, it's yours, and you can sell it. There is nothing that Nintendo has nothing that prevents me from selling this copy of Super Smash Bros. Should I want to. I can trade it in to GameStop. I can sell it to a friend. I can give it away on Craigslist. It is mine to do with as I please. Can't do that with digital. I can't transfer a digital license as easily. A lot of services are starting to do that. Steam, for example, is starting to get into being able to transfer digital licenses, refund digital licenses. That's a big step, and that's going to be one of the things that I think will really define just how quickly digital games take over like any other digital entertainment. Like being able to refund digital purchases for games, that could do for games what digital did for music. I mean, the whole reason why digital did so well for music is because a lot of times people didn't want to buy a whole album. They really liked maybe one or two songs. They wanted to buy just those individual songs. And that's what made digital really, really powerful for music. We don't really have that for games. I can't just say, well, I want to buy just Shulk and Link and, and maybe, Ness as characters for Smash Bros. Only, but like that's not something that, is available in the gaming industry. Give it time. Certainly give it time. There's going to start being things like that pop up. But there are some serious pros and cons to both. And I've gotten the question a lot of, do you prefer physical over digital? Personally, I prefer physical, but I know digital has a very strong place in anyone's library. And it really gets me that there have been conversations on forums and places like Reddit where there's people who go around saying, digital is not collecting. And if you buy digital games, you hurt actual collectors, which is just the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. Because there are several games that are digital only, and had it not been for people buying that, those companies would never be able to produce other games. Some companies start at much, much lower cost for overhead to do a digital-only game. You don't have to worry about getting the cartridges or pressing discs, getting cases, distribution. It becomes considerably easier to be like, no, I just want to put it on the Nintendo eShop and people can download it if they want. That becomes so much easier. So it allows a lot more people to get into game development. And that lower barrier for entry means that there's going to be a lot more available. Not all of it's going to be good. Not all of it's going to be great. But the probability becomes higher that something is going to be good or great because there's just more out there. Just, law of averages, the statistics for it. I'm not drunk, but maybe. The statistics for it just, if you have a larger pool to choose from, there's going to be a greater possibility of having something really good. So it's a huge bonus. And if, the game sells well and the developer's like, hey, yeah, no, I want to have a physical version of it. Sure. I've got, along the bottom shelf there, the indie box games. Those are games that were digital only, never really got a physical release, and a company did that. They gave them a physical release as a collector's edition style box. Most of those are PC only. There are a couple that had PS4 or other downloads as well, but that was those physical copies. One of them specifically is Dust. Dust is out digitally on every platform, but physically it's only available in a couple of places. IndieBox on PC. Limited Run Games is doing a Switch version of it. Those are the only places to get a physical copy of Dust. Now, Dust is available on so many platforms that I'm not really worried about losing the license to it, but say it was only available on Switch or Xbox Live, where it originally released. What happens when Microsoft cuts all servers for Xbox 360? Unless it's backwards compatible and it has been, whitelisted, transferred over to whatever system that they have. It's like the Wii. The Wii eShop is done. It's gone. Nintendo stopped. So any of the Virtual Console titles that you didn't download before they turned it off, you don't get to download anymore because they've discontinued that service. So yes, I still have a Wii. I have licenses to games, but they no longer offer it as download because they've stopped supporting the service. So that's where things get a little concerning. And I know a lot of people are just going to say Nintendo has a very archaic online infrastructure. True, but there's nothing stopping any of the others. Once the PS5 comes out, there's really nothing Sony has. Well, we've got the PS3, the PS4, the PS5. We can stop access to the PS3 online. There's no point in keeping those servers up. Let's free up the space, free up the money, shift it to PS5. Really nothing stopping that. The fans can get outraged, but if Sony says, it's more cost effective for them, it's more profitable for them, they are a company first and foremost. They're going to go where the money leads them. And so as long as it's profitable for them to keep these up, they'll keep it up. But the second that it's not, you lose access to a lot of things. So, yeah, it's a very hot topic. It's a very diverse topic. There's really no 100% correct answer. It really boils down to what fits your play style and purchase ethic better. Do you feel comfortable with only having physical or only digital with the pros and cons therein? Do you mix and match and dabble? Do you double dip? Have the physical copy so that you can have the physical copy and play it no matter what happens, but lean more towards the digital because of convenience? ease. Maybe your online, your internet service provider does not really allow for really efficient downloads, which sadly is true in a lot of America. Our ISP choices are crap for the most part. Yeah. So that infrastructure sucks. So downloading, 8, 12, 24 gigs can be obnoxious and kind of off-putting for a lot of people. So, I get it. But the fact that it is such a heated debate and that there are so many people that are on either side scream that their side is the only correct side, their side is the one true God. I felt like I needed to weigh in, give my 2 cents on it, because there are some serious pros and cons to both. And because there are pros and cons to both, no side is 100% perfect, because there's a con, and that kind of kills the whole perfection argument. But like I said, just felt like I needed to chime in on it. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts. Like I said, do you do digital only, physical only, mix and match, double dip, what? Because, like I said, I have a very dual nature to it. I love having the physical games just from a collection aspect, from a ownership aspect, but I love digital games for convenience aspect. And the more I look into things, I've modded so many consoles to make that ease of use far more easy and far more beneficial. So I'm very curious as to know what everyone else's thoughts are on this, because, like I said, it's a very heated debate. I would like also for everyone who does chime in to keep it civil, because, please, this isn't a bar fight. Let's have some class. To quote Eldecard. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you for tuning in and all that jazz. Hope if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, favorite, subscribe, all of that jazz. And I do also plug the Patreon. I have Patreon for stuff and things and rewards and stuff to help continue making this quality content that you're so used to seeing. So yeah, till the next rant. Later, everyone.